In the 14th century, the Byzantine world still called itself Roman. Its emperors ruled from Constantinople, the queen of cities, and their scribes wrote in the language of old law and old ceremony. But the empire that had once wrapped the Mediterranean like a belt had become a patchwork of islands. A capital with suburbs, a few Aegean ports, scattered fortresses in Thrace and the Morea in southern Greece. The walls of Constantinople remained colossal, yet beyond them, fields went untilled, villages shrank, and the tax base that fed emperors and armies thinned to a trickle. The danger was not simply one enemy, but a new landscape of power. After the Fourth Crusade's sack of 1204 and the long struggle to recover the capital, Byzantium never fully regained its economic heartbeat. Venetian and Genoese merchants dominated the sea lanes and the customs revenue. In the countryside, magnates and monasteries pulled land out of the tax rolls. Civil wars within the imperial family shattered what was left of unity, and every rival claimant borrowed soldiers from abroad, Serbs, Bulgarians, Turks, paying them with coin, privileges, and sometimes whole towns. Across the water in Anatolia, the Byzantine frontier had once been a chain of themes, fortified districts anchored by peasant soldiers. That system had broken after Manzikert in 1071, and centuries of gradual erosion followed. By the 1200s, Anatolia was a mosaic of Turkish-speaking principalities, beyliks, ruling over mixed populations of Muslims and Christians, nomads and farmers, townsmen and monks. The Byzantines still held a few coastal cities, but the interior belonged to new lords who were not merely raiders. They minted, administered, negotiated, and learned. The frontier became a school where warriors and statesmen were trained at the same time. Out of this world emerged a small principality on the edge of Bithynia, the Ottomans. Early Ottoman memory placed its founder, Osman, on a border where allegiance was flexible and identity could be layered. In later stories, Osman dreams of a tree whose branches shade the world, and holy men bless his line. Strip away the legend, and the reality remains extraordinary. A minor warband becomes, within a handful of generations, the inheritor of an imperial space. Osman and his followers were positioned perfectly, close enough to Byzantine towns to profit from raids and ransoms, near enough to trade routes to tax and protect them, and far enough from stronger Turkish rivals to survive long enough to grow. Byzantine weakness gave opportunity. Ottoman adaptability turned opportunity into structure. Osman's son, Orhan, took key cities in Bithynia. Bursa fell in 1326 and made them more than trophies. Bursa became a capital, a place where taxes could be collected regularly, judges appointed, markets supervised, endowments founded. Ottoman rule did not require every Christian village to be uprooted or every church to be burned. What mattered was obedience, revenue, and security. Local notables who cooperated could keep influence. Craftsmen were valuable, and towns that surrendered could be spared the worst of conquest. In a world exhausted by civil war and banditry, even a new master could seem preferable to chaos. Meanwhile, in Constantinople, the imperial court fought itself. In the 1340s and 1350s, Byzantium tore open with another civil war, and the contenders invited Turkish forces across the straits as allies. These were not faceless hordes, but hired troops with commanders, contracts, and expectations of payment. The moment was decisive. Turks did not merely raid Europe, they learned it. They mapped roads, measured fortresses, and discovered the fractures between Balkan powers. Then, nature intervened with the force of fate. An earthquake in 1354 damaged the walls of Gallipoli. The Ottomans seized the town and with it a permanent bridgehead in Europe. What had been an empire split by water became, for the first time, vulnerable on both shores.
From Gallipoli, the Ottomans moved into Thrace, the Byzantine hinterland that once fed Constantinople. Adrianople, Edirne, fell and became an Ottoman center of gravity in Europe. This was not simply conquest by the sword, it was conquest by administration. The Ottomans established Timar grants, assigning revenue from land to cavalrymen in exchange for service. They organized frontier marcher lords, but kept them within a growing state framework. They developed a judicial system that could settle disputes and collect fines. They also cultivated religious legitimacy through alliances with Sufi orders and scholars, translating frontier charisma into imperial authority. As Byzantium's countryside emptied, the Ottomans redirected population and labor. Conquest was followed by resettlement, repairs, and new endowments, mosques, markets, baths, institutions that stabilized urban life. Even in places that remained Christian majority, Ottoman governance could be surprisingly practical. The state wanted predictable taxes more than it wanted ruins. This pragmatism made Ottoman expansion harder to reverse. A fortress could be retaken, a whole fiscal system, once running, rooted itself into daily life. The Balkan powers were not passive, but they were divided. The Serbian Empire expanded rapidly under Stefan Dušan, even taking much of Macedonia and Greece, but it fragmented after his death. Bulgaria faced its own internal fractures. Local lords fortified their towns and negotiated separately. In this landscape, the Ottomans advanced like water finding the lowest ground, sometimes through battle, sometimes through vassalage, sometimes through marriage and diplomacy. When Christian rulers became Ottoman vassals, they paid tribute and provided troops, and in return kept their thrones for a time. This was not the end of their autonomy, but it postponed disaster and, paradoxically, helped Ottoman armies grow stronger by supplying them with local knowledge and manpower. By the late 14th century, the Ottomans faced their own trials. Murad Erst and then Bayezid Erst pushed hard into the Balkans and Anatolia, but rapid expansion created new enemies. In 1402, the conqueror Timur smashed Bayezid at Ankara, capturing him and plunging the Ottoman realm into an interregnum. For Byzantium, it was a brief reprieve, one of those moments when history seems to offer a second chance. The empire negotiated, regained a few territories, and watched Ottoman princes fight each other. Yet Byzantium lacked the resources to rebuild a true field army or restore its Anatolian base. It could survive another decade, perhaps another generation, but not transform. When the Ottomans reunited under Mehmed Erst and then Murad Erst, they returned with sharper instruments. They had learned how fragile a fast-growing state could be, and they tightened the center. They improved fiscal control, tamed rival warlords, and restored pressure on the Balkans. Constantinople, surrounded in a tightening ring, remained a symbol as much as a city, the last lighthouse of Roman continuity and the prize that would turn Ottoman power into something undeniably imperial. The stage was set for a final act that would not merely end Byzantium, but absorb and remake its world. The last century of Byzantium was lived with the knowledge of walls. Constantinople's Theodosian fortifications had survived sieges for 1,000 years, and the city's defenders trusted stone, moats, and towers more than they trusted their shrinking armies. But walls are not only barriers, they are boundaries of a way of life. Outside them, the empire's provinces had become bargaining chips. Inside them, emperors tried to hold together a society fraying under debt, faction, and the slow draining of people to plague and poverty.
This concludes the first part of how the Ottoman Empire replaced the Byzantine world. To witness the rise, strategies, and final conquest in the second part, subscribe to Forgotten Thrones and stay tuned.